Hey guys, I'm Rebecca Hart, director at Hart Square Village. I'm going to introduce you to master potter Preston Tolbert, who's rebuilding our historic Groundhog kiln.
Well, this kiln is designed after a kiln from the 1820s, 1830s. As a matter of fact, it was originally built on arch boards from that time. And last fall we rebuilt the front of it. It was starting to look pretty bad.
So Preston, tell us a little bit about the Catawba Valley tradition. I know it's about 2,000 years old, really, of this continuous tradition from native tribes. Who was involved in that and how did it get started?
Well, one of the earliest stoneware potters here. Stoneware is clay that's fired up above 2,000 degrees.
Okay.
The earliest stoneware potter in this area was Daniel Siegel, and he had several apprentices. They had apprentices, and that tradition continued through Berlin Craig, who was the last surviving potter in this area around the 1980s, in which he took some apprentices, and they're still making pots today.
Yeah.
Berlin Craig was the only link to from the original European settlers in this area, as far as potters go, to today in the United States.
Wow. Yeah, he was totally pivotal in this movement. So we had the Catawba and Cherokee tribes, like I said, creating for 2,000 years. The European settlers came around 1750s, and that's what brought in those big families, the Siegels, the Reinhardts, a lot of collectibles you guys might know that this area is known for. But that tradition, like he's saying, is passed down orally. So we almost lost it. There was only one person. And the reason why that's so important is because making pottery is not just about throwing on the wheel. It's the glaze recipes that are involved, and it's the wood firing technique. So I'm going to have Preston talk a little bit about sort of the three components, in my opinion, of Catawba Valley pottery are the local clay, the alkaline glaze, and the wood firing. Talk about those and what makes them special.
Well, you know, the potters that made pots and continue to make pots from the beginning of the 20th century, they kept up with the times and changed. But around here, they really didn't. So they kept using those original techniques that were I don't know, I kind of lost my...
That would have been lost to time, really.
Yeah.
Those techniques like local clay. So our local Catawba clay here is one of the best. I mean, people come here to dig it out because of the richness of it and how beautiful it is when it's fired. As
a matter of fact, there's the Catawba clay is being dispersed throughout the southeast. There's a clay company down near Seagrove, North Carolina, that is taking the clay from Catawba, making clay, and sharing it all over the U.S.
Yeah, which is so cool.
Yeah.
The alkaline glaze recipe is a cinder glaze, and that's passed down orally. And if you mess it up, you can blow up a pot. So It's pretty important that you learn that from a master to an apprentice. I know we've blown up pots here before plenty times. And then the last component is wood firing, which is really Preston's specialty. So if you want to talk a little bit about wood firing and how the Groundhog kiln, the design and how it works.
So the way this kiln is, we have a firebox on one end, a wear chamber in the middle, and then a flue on the other side is a chimney. And we'll load pots in the middle of the kiln. The pots are dry, and then we start putting wood in the front. We start stoking it and building like a campfire, and then the fire builds and builds until we have an absolute inferno. We're throwing in 6 to 10 pieces of wood, and within a couple of minutes it's all gone. We'll end up with a flame out the chimney 10, 12 feet tall.
How hot does it get in there?
The kiln gets about 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow, that's incredible.
And you notice I'm using the word kill. It's interesting that word was originally pronounced this way, and it was spelled Kiln, and then as the word got used in books and stuff, people would read it as kiln. So when you hear people say the word kiln, it's because they mispronounced the word kill. They read it and then said it that way.
Okay, I did not know that. You know, I think one thing that Preston and I are working on is not just the restoration of this kiln, but also the preservation of the tradition, right? Like he was saying, it could have died out in 1980, and luckily we have Kim Ellington, who apprenticed under Berlin Craig, who has partnered with Preston and some of our other potters, but we're finding it really, really difficult, and so we have decided to start a program for apprenticeship here at Hart Square. So we're actually launching this summer, bringing in children to start learning the traditional methods, and they will hopefully get to participate in our community firing, which happens on that Living History Day in October. So are there any things you want to share about this kiln in particular? I mean, it was a really important thing to you too, you know.
Totally. Before I really understood this tradition, I'm from this area, but before I really understood this tradition, I was in a university situation, and I had a book about kiln building, and the first kiln that I built, I used that book to build it. Well, this kiln is featured in that book. When they made that book, they used the photographs and the original drawings and photographs of the arch boards to basically show how to build a pottery kiln. Mm-hmm. And this is it's called the Kiln Book by Fred Olson, and it's spread out across the world. There's people all over the world that know this particular kiln, mm-hmm. and it's pretty special.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I helped Fred Olson build a North Carolina Groundhog kiln in Wales.
Oh, that's really neat. Yeah, this kiln here was built in 1987 by Berlin Craig, who we were talking about, who is a National Endowment for the Arts winner. So he's also featured in the Smithsonian, and so all of us here are very proud of him because he's our only artist we have in the Catawba Valley who is in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. So he built this. This is his legacy, and we had the honor of rebuilding it here so that we can continue his legacy.
So this is called the potting shed?
Yeah, so this is where a potter would make pots, and this potting shed was based on Berlin Craig's shed that he was using. Berlin Craig is basically the person that we associate with Catawba Valley pottery most, because he is the bridge that connects 19th century pottery with pottery today.
And this is something we were talking about earlier that you went to college for and got a degree in, and you teach it now.
Yeah, I teach ceramics at Lenore University and Catawba Valley Community College.
So this is kind of a profession and a passion both together, huh?
Yeah, it's like anything. When you really dive into it and make it your business, it really fully encompasses your life.
Let's go inside and see some of these pieces I was looking at earlier. We were talking about all these lids out here that Dr. Hart had collected for churn lids.
Yeah, these are churn lids. Some people would use these for weights for fermenting, like for making pickles. So this is an example of a pottery shed. This is never used to really produce pottery except for during the festival. Right here, we have a set of arch boards. These arch boards are from as early as 1825. These arch boards were used to build the kiln that Berlin Craig used. These arch boards were probably used to build most of the kilns in this area. And these arch boards were used to build this kiln in 1987.
So they use that to lay the brick across?
Exactly. And if you look, these arch boards are not made with nails. It's actually made with rosewood pins.
So there would have been a lot of them built at that same angle, degree, and arch, I guess.
And what's really interesting is that this exact arch is it's almost identical to the arches at Le Borgne in France. So we feel that there is a connection between Catawba Valley pottery and Le Borgne pottery in France.
The settlers brought it here probably in
We
the
don't know
craft.
the exact connection, but there's enough evidence that it's likely.
So we was looking at some of these pottery that has the faces on them. They have a special name. You call them just face pottery? Or?
These are face jugs, is what
Face jugs,
yeah.
okay.
And face jugs are they can trace their roots back to enslaved potters in Edgefield, South Carolina.
So we got, is some of this made, this pottery here, been here for a while or made here, or has it been collected, or?
Most of the pottery that you see right here was made here during the festival. So when potters demonstrate, they would leave their pots here. So this is kind of evidence of many, many years of the festival.
We got some little boards that's got arches over here. What's up with these things? What are this about?
Those are called pot lifts, and when you would make a pot on a wheel, you would use a wire and cut the pot off, and then you put those two boards together, and they can lift the pot off the wheel.
Okay, got you. So this is some stuff they've actually. This is
a treadle wheel. This is a little bit newer design than 1800s. This one's only back to about the 1950s. This is a Leach treadle wheel designed in England. But what we have here is a ball opener, and this is Berlin Craig made this ball opener for us here at Hart Square. And the way this would be used is you're turning a pot, and when you center the clay, you use this to open the clay and flatten the bottom like that. So at some point we will get a traditional Catawba Valley style treadle wheel. Over here is a glaze mill. So glaze would be poured into the center here, and then you turn this handle and grind the glaze materials. The glaze here is made of wood ash, clay, and traditionally iron cinders from smelting iron.
You was talking earlier about that you got clay from your own farm that you use to make pottery for yourself?
I do use some of the clay that I've dug from my farm. I did use some of the clay from my farm to make bricks for this kiln that we recently rebuilt.
So most of the pottery is, the clay in this area is particularly suited for making pottery, or?
The clay in this area is the very best. This clay, originally the Rhodes clay pit that was used by most of the potters in this area is just an unbelievably good clay. The first time I used it, it made me feel like a good potter.
So I noticed that before I was talking about, used to be located, my business was located by a commercial pottery company. They used what I think they called it slip or something. Is that similar to what you would call it on this, making these type pottery, or?
So with that, the way you would use slip is you take a clay and mix it into a liquid. It's just a lot more water in it. It's the only difference between a clay and a slip, and then you pour it into a mold.
A mold. Slip's
Yeah.
used for a mold, and then these are handmade on these wheels.
Correct.
So this is operated. How is this foot operated, or how
Yeah.
how does this work?
This wheel, you sit on the saddle here, and then you kick the treadle like that.
Okay, so then the potter just shapes it however they feel.
Exactly. Now, traditionally, the Catawba Valley style treadle wheel is a stand-up treadle wheel. So you have a lean bar, and then you stand up like this, and you turn like that. And the potter would actually, you're standing on your right leg, and your right leg is the one that goes bad eventually, not the left leg. The left leg's working, the right leg would typically have some problems. Berlin Craig had neuropathy derived from standing on that one leg. There's a famous potter, David Drake, from Edgefield, South Carolina, an enslaved potter, and he lost his right leg, and I believe it was from neuropathy from throwing standing up like that.
So a lot of physical labor goes into making pottery then.
It's nothing
back in
but
the
physical
day.
labor.
Nothing but physical labor.
Even now, I mean, it's a lot of work.
Now, do you sell your pottery that you make? Do you have a place that you?
I do several shows. I have a website, sell my pottery on, and
What's the name of your website? Some people might want to check that out.
Preston Talbert or TalbertCeramics.com.
Tarbert
So
Ceramics.
TOLBERT
Okay.
ceramics.com.
Okay, so they can find some of your work on there.
Yeah.
And you ship it?
Yeah,
Okay. I imagine that's not easy to ship without getting it broke sometimes.
I do pretty well.
Did pretty well. All right.
I don't ship anything very big. I stick to smaller things. I sell my big stuff at local shows. I think I'm gonna put this one right there. Broke my finger.
You broke your finger?
Yeah.
Just now?
Yeah. Look at that. It's broke. I'll go see if I can find some light. Need to clean it up.
Wait, you pinched it?
No, it's broke. Yeah, I smashed a rock down that way.
Use mainly white oak and pine for most of our projects, and we did use the post right here. Those are locust posts. 7 inches. I think I saw the trimmer up here. It'd be about right. We're gonna put these slats on today, and then we're gonna put rock, always big rock up on top to conceal, and then dirt. And then when we get them putting dirt in, we'll put the tin on top. Okay,
So when it's time to start the fire, we have green pots all through the kiln, and the green pots can easily blow up if they get above 212. 212's temperature water boils, so we have to keep a small campfire right here in the bottom of the kiln. We'll start a campfire, and we'll get the fire going low and keep it low for a few hours until all the water is driven off of those pots. And once we're sure all the water is driven off, we'll slowly build that fire up, and soot will start to form over all the pots. All the pots will turn black, and we'll see the soot start to load up on the pots until they get all the way to the back of the kiln from the front, and then slowly the soot will start to burn off. We know that the soot burns off around 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pots will turn from black to white. And as soon as we see the pots turn in the back of the kiln, as soon as they turn from black to white in the back of the kiln, we'll blast it off. And blasting off means we really just stoke lots of wood in the front. Flames come out the chimney, and we'll do that until the kiln gets to 2,350 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's white hot. The ware is shiny and slick, and then we quit stoking the kiln and we're done.
So this is your wood that you'll use this fall?
Yeah, we use between 4 and 6 foot pine slabs, and a lot of people are skeptical about us using pine because you think about your wood stove in your house where you got to use oak, and oak makes a hot fire. But for us, there's a lot of rosin in that pine and a lot of energy, and it really gets a hot kill.
And you said it's 4 foot. What? It looks like you'd have to put it in sideways or at an angle to get 4 foot boards in these?
Between 4 and 6 foot boards will just kind of, they slide down and they'll stick out to about here.
Okay.
and we'll actually use the wood to kind of block these doors up. We'll stuff all 3 of these holes with wood, and it kind of acts like an afterburner. It just sucks air, and it's absolutely incredible the amount of heat we'll get out of this. It acts like a rocket ship almost.
So maybe we'll get to see that in the fall. I bet that'll be pretty
Yeah.
amazing. So we got it rebuilt now. It should be going pretty good this fall.
Yeah, we've done 2 firings in this kiln since we rebuilt it,
Oh, have you? Okay.
and we're getting this roof on it so it won't be wet next time we fire it.
So that's the purpose of building the roof. We
Right.
didn't really talk about that yet. So,
Yeah, we were putting a shed on it to keep the kiln dry. That's all it does.
okay. So you want to explain a little bit about the original way it was built and what you all did to improve it in modern day technology a little bit?
Well, we didn't really improve anything in technology, except we actually made this more historically accurate when we rebuilt it. The front of this kiln, when Burl and Craig originally designed it, this front wall was under the arch. Right now, you see that the arch is butted up against the front wall, and from historical photographs, we know that this is the way that they were mostly built. And the reason that he didn't put that he put that arch under the wall was so that to keep it from going back and forth. Well, originally they would have a piece of wood across the front right here. And you can imagine when you have 2,300 degrees right here and there's a piece of wood, there can be problems. So what they did was they would have a kid or somebody constantly walking by with a watering can wetting that piece of wood until technology improved where they had a piece of steel to go across to replace that piece of wood. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a rail, a piece of rail I acquired from the old Virginia Creeper Railroad, and we're gonna put that across the front to hold that front in place. Oh. About went at it without gloves again.
So what does the rocks help with?
The rocks act as buttressing. They're keeping that arch in place. They're also giving it a pretty facade.
So the rocks are to help keep the structure from expanding out?
Right. That arch naturally wants to push out. And that's one of the reasons that the front had to be rebuilt, is that arch was sitting on top of the wall. The arch pushed out like it naturally wants to do, but that wall didn't go anywhere. So those bricks that were above the arch wanted to fall in. So we replaced the front 6 feet to fix the cracks that had developed from that. And now we're putting buttressing back in to keep that from spreading out anymore. And you can kind of see how the thrust of the earth is here with that arch. We're trying to sort of match that so that arch is pushing into the ground rather than into the air.
I think I was gone that long. Y'all went fast.
Yeah. It's
Still there.
yeah.
Let's see that thing. What'd you do to it?
You want that on the on your video?
Well, you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into this project.
I've already
ain't
had plenty of blood in it.
you? Really? So building stuff like this, it can take a toll on your body, can't it?
Yeah, especially these in-ground kilns built underground. Most of the kilns I build are a steel frame with brick built above ground, like where you can move it around with a pallet jack or whatever.
So this one's just special because it's so big, or tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the main thing is the shape of it. This kiln is low and wide and long, and most kilns are not shaped like this. There are a lot of shapes around the world, but this is unique to this area. There are only maybe 8 kilns like this in the world. The design has its origins in Libourne, France. The Libourne kilns are about the same width and have the same sort of arch. And we believe that a lot of the potters in this area can trace back to those French folk potters.
Now, when you were talking earlier, you said they could hold quite a bit of pieces of pottery.
Right.
What are we talking about? How many pieces do you think's ever been in there the most?
Well, the smaller they are, the more you're going to get in, of course. This kiln was designed where there are no shelves in the kiln. There are a lot of the more contemporary kilns use posts and shelves, so you can put a lot of small pots in a kiln. This one's not designed for that. You put big pots in the center, and then the further you get past the edges of the arch, you put smaller and smaller pots, where on the sides you put the small 1 gallon and smaller pots. So in the center of this kiln, you might put 8 to 10 40-gallon jugs, and then maybe 20 to 30 15 to 20 gallon 30 or 40 5-gallon pots, and then random 1-gallon pots around those.
The smaller ones go towards the back because they don't need
Toward
as much
the sides.
To the sides, okay.
So if you look at the front of this kiln, I don't know if you want to move around or whatever, but the top is taller than the side, so you put the big pots right down the middle, and then as you get closer to the edges, you get smaller pots.
So does it matter the heat coming from here, from the further back, or does it?
So the pots on the front, this sloped wall that you see on the other side of the stoke doors is called the bag wall or flash wall, and it's tilted. And right at the top of that is the hottest part of the kiln. So some potters will use a slightly different glaze between the front and the back. So they'll use a hotter burning glaze in the front and a cooler burning glaze in the back.
Okay, so I was wondering about the heat.
A lot of the folk potters would put flower pots in the very back or in the chimney. So just the red terracotta flower pots and things in the very back where it doesn't get terribly hot.
So back in the day before you were talking about earlier, the glass came in and the pottery wasn't as needed as much. Were there a lot of commercial kilns that this size? I mean, to me, this looks like a commercial size kiln where you'd be making a lot of pottery.
So when you compare this to commercial kilns that really started cropping up around 1900, this is a very small kiln. This is the average size for this area, about 20 feet long and about 10 feet wide. When you get down to places like Seagrove, they were narrower in width and a little bit taller in height. So they were narrower, had a single stoke hole instead of 3, and they were a little bit higher and maybe a little bit shorter in length. But this 3 stoke hole thing is unique to this area. You don't see that anywhere else in the world.